Is it okay? Are you seeing my face well? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. If you are watching from the United States, good evening. If you are in Africa or Europe, welcome to today's edition of the Lambom Show. And we are on set with veteran sports journalist Fon Echekiye for our usual Saturday roundup for news, commentaries, analysis about soccer on the continent. You already know that part of the menu of this program is going to be an apology. We are working very hard to maintain journalistic standards, and we'll try as much as we can to make sure we start on time, not continue starting in time. I'm sure that by the time we get to the meat of this broadcast, the meat of this call it this program, which is about soccer on the continent and the build up to the World Cup, we would have put in place what is necessary to make sure we have efficient and efficacious production. So once more, we're sorry, but there we go. There is the man. Hi, Fon. How are you today?
Well, I'm fine. There was a very serious downpour in nation's capital today, and at one point I feared for this program because I thought with the meteorological uncertainty we were going to have to see ourselves running rings around each other. But at the end of the day, the thing has subsided, even though we still have a light drizzle out there.
Good. So, like we said, let's start off with what is most prominent, the World Cup preparations. We are on the 1st of October. I think we are exactly 50 days or 51 days out to the first game. And in the month of September, we had the international window, and all of the countries took the opportunity to play some test games, preparation matches. What is the score? What's the scorecard on the African teams?
Well, the first thing is that, Lambert, the FIFA window was open and now later on got shut. And we stay away now with what you could call what you get away from it. Each of the 5 African participants played 2 friendly matches. I don't know whether you want to call them friendly matches or test matches. I prefer to call them test matches because we're testing the skills of the players in camp and testing the various strategies you intend to take to the World Cup finals. So Senegal, Tunisia, Ghana, Morocco, and Cameroon had 2 matches each. At the end of the day, one country stood out very, very prominently, but for the wrong reason. And that country happened to have been Cameroon because they didn't win any of the 2 matches. They didn't have even a draw, and worse still, they didn't even as much as score a goal. So Cameroon stood prominently under the bright spotlight for the wrong reason. Senegal had a victory and a draw. Senegal defeated Bolivia 2-0 and pulled a 1-1 draw with another World Cup participants, Iran. Tunisia edged Comoros 1-0, but when they met the real standards, they went and played against the boys and won 1-0. When they met the men for their own test match, they were given a ruthless circumcision. So defeated by 5-1 by Brazil. Ghana started off losing to Brazil by 0-3. They got a face saver when they edged Nicaragua by 1-0. And of course, Morocco played in their first game, defeated Chile by 2-1, and then played to a 0-0 tie with Paraguay. So that gives you the score sheet for the African country. And then Cameroon, as I said earlier, lost the 2 matches. The first one, 0-2 to Uzbekistan, and they lost 0-1 to South Korea. So they were unable one more time to defeat South Korea. That made it 7 matches unable to defeat South Korea. But of course, their scorecard shows very clearly that they were even unable to score as much as a goal. So the question that was being asked is, what is Cameroon up to ahead of the World Cup finals? I know that's a question you want to ask me. But you see, Lambert, in 3 decades of the coverage of the national team of Cameroon, there is something that you have to be worried of. Make sure you don't go place a dime on a bet on the team. Bet on them and predict on them at a peril. When you think that they cannot deliver, that is when they do. That takes us to 2003 when they were going to France for the Confederations Cup. I remember an official of a brewery company in Cameroon who wanted to find out for me whether there was any need for them staking a dime in the name of sponsorship when the team would be playing out there in France. And I told them that, you see, I wouldn't say. One thing I've known about this team is that it's a spirit that has been transferred from one generation to another, which makes us believe that when you expect them to do something, they do nothing. When you expect them to do nothing, they do something. So now the question is, at this stage, do we expect them to do something or not? In 2003, they were being called pushovers, but they went over to France. Had it not been for the death of Marc-Vivien Foé, maybe, I think I'm about 60% sure Cameroon would have won the Confederations Cup. But what happened in the semifinals, and then Cameroon proceeded to play that final in what at the time was described as something that we were just doing for the sake of doing. In 2017, Cameroon went over to Gabon. I remember at the time, the director of the CRTV communication agency, Mr. Wongibe Emmanuel, at the time, today he's become the deputy general manager of CRTV, asked me what I thought could be the outcome of Cameroon's performance at the Africa Cup of Nations in Gabon. And I said at the time that the trend was showing that Cameroon was not going to do well, but that I would want to be the one blade of grass that is popping out on a well-cleared lawn to tell you that this is just a time when they could deliver when you least expect. And my argument was hinged on the fact that that team has always had some of these players he called landlords of the team. And apparently 7 of those so-called landlords of the team had decided to stay back because they said they didn't think that was worth the while going for the Nations Cup. They gave all kinds of reasons. And I said that was going to be the reason why those of them who are not landlords of the team, who are rather tenants of the team, will now be given the opportunity to demonstrate what they're capable of doing. And of course, everybody knows the story after the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations. So at this point in time, it becomes difficult for you to say, what is Cameroon going to do at the World Cup finals? Rigobert Song Bahana, the manager of the team, has been quoted as on record of having said that during these 2 matches, he saw what he was looking for. What was that thing he was looking for? He didn't tell anybody, but he saw what he was looking for. But I think, and at some point, the president of the federation, Samuel Eto'o, said in the first game, he loved to see the Lions lose, something that's being misinterpreted today. It's not like, I'm not his lawyer. He doesn't know me particularly. He doesn't know me individually at any level. But I think that what the president of the federation was saying actually was that he wanted Cameroon to play in a position of adversity so that he can be able to size up for himself to find out whether the lion spirit in the team is still alive. How do they behave faced with adversity? I think that's what he meant. The others have started throwing stones at him because that, when he came in there, what he was saying was that he didn't want Cameroon to win and so on and so forth. Why would he say that he didn't want Cameroon to win if he's asking us to believe that it's possible to win the World Cup this year? So I don't think that was what it was. He would have loved to see Cameroon play from a position of adversity and see whether they can be able to bounce back and then assess for themselves whether or not the Lions fighting spirit was still alive in the den. Now, Rigobert Song Bahana in the match against Uzbekistan tried out a system we call the 3-5-2. 2 attackers, 5 midfielders, and 3 defenders. That didn't pay off. And I said last week on the program that if it was not potent enough to give them what they were looking for, it could certainly have been that they did not have the required personnel in camp. They did not have the required lions and the claws in the den to stand up to the challenges faced with what they were given as the implements to tackle the opponent. So I imagine that didn't work well. Then he decided to change. In the good old days of Pierre Lochamp, and then sometimes with Arthur Georges, they tried out that. But at the time, you had players who could regroup at the pace of lightning. You had Rigobert Song Bahana manning defense to his right. You had Jitab, and to the left, you had Women. So they could do that at the time. Today, we don't have those kinds of players. So he tried out that and it didn't work. But I imagine that what he was telling himself is, should we go to the World Cup and we find an opponent that gives you the kind of puzzle that requires that kind of a setup to have it resolved, then it should not be cut pants down. So he tried out on the first day, it didn't work. On the second day, they tried the traditional 4-3-3, and it paid off. It paid off in the sense that even though they lost the match, not as heavily as the first one, they were able to stand up to the South Koreans. In fact, they emasculated, they like held the South Korea, they caged them in the second half of the match. They weren't able to give them the equalizer. But you could see a team that could be described as being good for the World Cup finals, but they didn't win. As just like you and I understand that what is important in the game of football is the victory, which is going to be a win for the team that you're rooting for. So I imagine that, with that said, the Cameroon team moved from what was something like a lot of uncertainty in the first test match against Uzbekistan to some kind of assurance in the second match. Now, so how do they take the assurance from the basis of assurance?
Just hold on 1 second. Let's welcome our brother, Raymond. Welcome on set. Can you hear
Raymond,
us?
I think his microphone is off. Okay, he's there.
Can you hear us, Raymond?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Welcome on set. Can you, introduce yourself to the audience so that before we get along, or maybe?
No, I think Lambert. I think I should introduce him.
That's what I was about to say.
This is a history-making moment because in years gone by, when one of the programs I created at CRTV, which in my absence has been destroyed and killed, Sports Frenzy, he was my permanent guest on the program. And as far as I'm concerned, of the analysts on CRTV of English language expression over the past 2 decades or so, I think he has been the most proficient. And today, he is not going to be my interviewee. He's going to be, we're going to be fighting against you, arms and gloves, so to stand up to the questions you have to ask us. So this is a historic moment on this program. And I say, welcome to the show, Raymond.
Thank you very much, Chief. I think a few days to your book launch, I think the acronym IBON is most welcoming, because everybody has to know that IBON is Fon Echekiye, and Fon Echekiye is a third of a century of sports statistics and facts covering not only Cameroon, African continent, but the world in terms of sports.
So welcome. This is my first time meeting you, and I'm grateful to the veteran journalist that is able to get you on, and we are grateful to have you as part of the team. And just before you got on, we're doing an analysis of the World Cup preparations by the 5 African teams that qualified for the World Cup, and we have been focusing on Cameroon, which is it happens to be, I'm sure you're in Cameroon now, it happens to be where both of you are. Again, last week we talked about the dismal outing at the first game, but Fon, you were about saying something with respect to the second game. You were,
I'm saying the second game, Mr. Song Bahanak decided to exercise himself. And it was like an absolution of the football scene committed in the first game when he brought in a kind of lineup that was strange to Cameroonians. And he brought in a Cameroon team that inspired some confidence. And then I'm therefore saying that with what we saw in the match against South Korea, if we bring in men like, for example, the midfield fulcrum, like Zambo Anguissa, who already, by the way, this afternoon has simply silenced his critics by scoring 2 goals in Napoli's defeat of Torino by 3-1. And that does it from my statistician, Divine Ade, that he's played 7 matches this far, scoring 3 goals and being at the origin of 3 assists. So if you bring in somebody like that, you have to bring in Choupo-Moting to do the work of the worker before later on making the scorer or the finisher, Abubakar, and then go back to the defense and try to reorientate the men at the defense. The Cameroon team is certainly going to be good for the World Cup.
Raymond, it seems as if you have a different assessment of the team. What do you make of the last game? I'm sure you watched it, and what is your assessment of the level of preparedness of the indomitable Lions of Cameroon?
Well, I've always been quite wary of friendly matches. it's true that winning breeds confidence. That's one of the laws in football. But the issue here is that I think the technical bench of the Lions, they were trying out systems, they were trying out players which they wanted it to fit with their adversaries that they will meet at the World Cup. Brazil plays a 4-3-3 system, a very movable 4-3-3 system. Sometimes it mutates itself into a 4-2-3-1. Sometimes it's a classical 4-3-3. So it depends on the opponent. But Serbia plays a 3-4-3 system, which sometimes becomes a 3-5-2 because they may have either Luka Jovic or Dusan Vlahovic up front. So I think that comes in where the technical bench wanted to try out a 3-4-3 system against Uzbekistan to try to mirror what we may see from our opponents. And then Switzerland play in predominantly, I mean, if you look at their matches, their 6 matches at the UEFA Nations League, their first 3 matches, they lost their first 3 matches because they played a 3-5-2 system. You always had Bril Embolo up front with maybe Sibache or another attacker, and they had to shelve that tactic and went in for a 4-3-3 system with just one attacker up front. That's Bril Embolo. And I mean, that's how you prepare for meeting your opponents. My only regret is that going into the World Cup, we're not going to meet any European teams because we are and any South American team, because we are playing 2 European teams. That's Switzerland and Serbia. And then we are meeting one South American team. That's Brazil. That's my main worry, that we have not been able to play any teams from these 2 continents. That's one of my worries. But I think in terms of preparation, we tried out something against Uzbekistan. It didn't quite work well. Samuel Eto'o made the comment that he made, taken with a pinch of salt. But I think we came back to what we've been playing for the past 3 or 4 years, 4-3-3, Abaka up front, being flanked by Brian Bemo and Mumin Ngamale. But going forward, if there is a player that I feel does not fit in Rigobert Song's system, that's Vincent Boubacar. It's true, he's a goal scorer. But if you look at that system critically, the system under Conceição was made to work for Vincent Boubacar to get in the balls at every position that he finds himself in, even if he withdraws himself, but he could get in the balls and be very effective when he's in the last 20 or 25 meters. But the Rigobert Song system, because understand that Rigobert Song is working with other battery of coaches in which they have worked on the Conceição system, but they want to make the system a little bit their own, in which the threat may come from any angle. It may come from the left, it may come from the right, it may come from the midfield, it may come from the attackers themselves. If you look at, excuse me, if you look at the match we played against Algeria, you could find out that we were not very effective when we wanted to focus our game only through the middle, only through Vincent Boubacar, or only through Choupo-Moting. You find out that our threats were coming out, be it left, right, or center. So going forward, I feel that playing a team like Switzerland, which is very mobile, very, very much defensive, a front 3 of Mumin Ngamale, Brian Bemo at the wings, and Toko Ekambi up front, for me, is much more effective with Vincent Boubacar coming in the second half and maintaining a midfield of Zambo, Hongla, and Umgwet. I find that more effective because if you look at the modern systems of today, look at Manchester United, they have a very star attacker, a very good attacker in Cristiano Ronaldo. But you see that Ten Hag prefers to play Rashford, Sancho, and
Anthony or Elanga.
Anthony, yes, which are, that is their mobile forward. You take Bayern, it's the same thing. Musiala, Thomas Müller, and Sadio Mane, or even Leroy Sané. These are mobile forwards. And when you are playing a team as defensive as Switzerland, I've watched all the past games of Switzerland, be it their 3 losses and the 3 victories that they've had, being able to beat Spain, being able to beat Portugal. If you look at all their matches, they are very, very defensive, and they take you on the counter attack. When you play such a mobile forward, you are able to be much more effective when you're in the attacking phase, because you have the attacking prowess, which other teams will not be able to offer you. So it's not that I'm doing the work of the coach, but I feel that our first match, we need to surprise the Swiss as much as possible. And then we have a certain psychosis. In 2002, we had Ireland in our group, Saudi Arabia and Germany. Everybody's focus was on Germany, forgetting that our first match was against Ireland, second match against Saudi Arabia. So it made it in such a way that we finally had 4 points going into the Germany match, and we lost.
Yes.
Every Cameroonian, I talk about Brazil. I tell people that we have 2 important finals. One against Switzerland, second against Serbia. If we can cross those 2 hurdles, I don't care about the score against Brazil.
I don't want to remember the last game Cameroon played against Brazil. I don't remember what the score was, but it wasn't pleasant. But I am so elated. I mean, you just left me spellbound with that analysis, isn't it? The breadth and depth of it, and to say that you have watched all the games of Switzerland, I don't think I've watched even one. But that's interesting to note. And I wanted to flag one thing, because again, you mentioned the newcomer into the team, Brian. I think that's his name, Gemo. I don't know what's your assessment of him. Yeah, and I watched the first half of the game against
Uzbekistan.
No, the second one
against South Korea.
South Korea. And my concern was about how he links up with Fai Collins. And which I think that is a modern system. And by the way, I forgot to say thank you for mentioning my favorite team, Manchester United. That's you are right.
You know what, Lambert? One of the things I didn't tell you by inviting Raymond on this show is because I know that you people are dancing in the same young group, and you're going to dance in the young group while I'm working from the other side. Brian Bemo, I don't think I'll have much to say about Brian Bemo, but except one thing, that on the first cap with the national team of Cameroon, he was good. Full stop. Nothing to say about it. And I think that it's really good for Cameroon to have that kind of a player. But I want to go back a little bit to what Raymond just said a while ago. When it's done plenty of mathematics, actually, you shouldn't be surprised, because in the good old days of sports friends, that was why they held people spellbound. In fact, I will tell you something. This was being discussed behind the curtains at the time. In fact, people met me and said, Mr. Fon, you are not only a good professional, but you are very bold. I said, how do you mean? They say you go and take that small boy like that and you take on your program live. What if he embarrasses you? I said, no, I'm waiting for when he will embarrass me, then I'll know how to answer the question. In other words, while I was rooting for him to become the analyst at CRTV, there were others who kept on saying that, well, it's not good. You know what? As soon as I left CRTV, they said, look for Raymond. Raymond is very good. Just to tell you that, and I will demonstrate in the Checks diary, that sometimes when a good idea comes from certain quarters, they want to downplay it. When you are no longer there, it has to be credited some other person, they try to highlight it. So that's a good, the long and short of certain things that happen on CRTV. Hey, but what I'm going to say is this. Switzerland can play all kinds of, they can inject any kind of approach you have into the game. Then my stand on this matter is very clear, that if you are going to prepare with test matches for the World Cup finals, look for those teams that are better ranked than you in the FIFA monthly rankings. Because when you would have capitalized on whom you are playing against in the first round, take Switzerland, take Serbia, and then take Brazil. That will keep on asking the question, when you have looked for those guys who play like them, and you qualify or you emerge from there, what happens next? What about if we are meeting in the next rounds of the competitions? So go to where whatever possibility or whatever puzzle that you meet in a way, you should be able to take care of. So as far as I'm concerned, if for example, Rigobert Song-Bahanda wanted Cameroon to get used to playing against a fast-playing team, then they did well. If they wanted to play against a team that was determined to win a friendly match, then they did it right, because South Korea had a coach who refused to lose the 7th outing of that team. He has won first 6 straight matches, or rather has not lost in 6 straight matches, and did not think that Cameroon was going to come and break that their run of invincibility. So they were going to play to their death. But then it was surprising that when we listened to the coach of Brazil, he was like accusing Cameroon of the non-respect of the ethics of the game of football. That this is a time where you're supposed to go out and play and safeguard the honor and the image of the game. But that the Cameroon team refused to play against Uzbekistan and against South Korea. I don't know what they base their arguments on. That's not true. I follow this team very closely. The spirit, in fact, actually, is no longer the players you have in camp playing. It is more of the spirit in the team. And the men who are in charge of the team, as Son Bahanak as coach, and Samuel Eto'o as the president of the technical organ of the football in the country, Fecafoot, they are making sure that that spirit stays in the team. And therefore, while Raymond is advancing all the arguments, is advancing to show or demonstrate, even though in a kind of, as it's always been, a very crafty manner, he's trying to say, well, people are looking at this first two and forgetting about Brazil, while he himself is thinking about Brazil, but in a different light. That forget about them, win the first two, and then forget about them. So I would have taken care of them by winning the first two. So in other words, it's also looking at Brazil because the arguments are very clear. Which is the best team? If we're looking at the game on a piece of paper, the best have been Brazil. But this issue of going to a competition with just one team you're targeting is all wrong. Because how many teams began this competition for the World Cup finals? There were so many of them. At the end of the day, 32 have emerged. It means that there is no pushover in the final game of the tournament. Just as at the end of the day, only one team, it doesn't matter what you do, that is going to win the cup.
So I want to go to, let's stay a little bit on Cameroon. And Raymond, I want to focus on one area that we seem not to be worried about, and that's the goalkeepers. And there has been a lot of talk about the Andre Onana and what's the other guy? Ondua Fabrice.
Fabrice Ondua, yeah.
Yeah, people seem to be of the opinion that Fabrice is a better goalkeeper than Andre. And he was away for 9 months because of the ban. But just watching that game, the way he uses his legs was just so impressive. Personally, I admired the way he was, moving back and forth. And that brings me back to the old-time rivalry, because I think the Cameroonian population has this fantasy of it's either Kono or
Joseph-Antoine
Bell. It is. So what is your take about this goalkeeper thing? Who is a better goalkeeper and why?
Before Raymond answers that question, the question of who between Bell and Kono was a better goalkeeper has been answered on page 76 of the Czech's diary coming up soon.
Okay, we'll get that. I'll put that in the parking lot for the end of this program. Raymond.
Yes, it's true. I mean, we've been having all these rivalries for the past 30 to 40 years. Our first African Nations Cup title was won by Joseph-Antoine Bell. The second in 1988 was still Joseph-Antoine Bell, but in the World Cup in 1990, we had Thomas Kono. And if you look at our other successive era, that's from 2000 to 2003, it has always been about either Aliou Mbouka or Idriss Carlos Kameni. Well, I mean, it's not bad that Cameroonians have in the back of their mind that there is Fabrice Ondua or there's Andre Onana. But my take is that if you have to talk about a certain sector of the game in which we are lacking, that is in passing the ball from the back up front. Ngade is lacking in that aspect. Castellotto is quite average in that aspect, and that's when a player and a goalkeeper like Andre Onana comes in. If you look at most of his balls from the back, skipping the numerous lines that we have on the pitch, he's very good with the feet. I mean, he's in my top 3 of goalkeepers who are very good with their feet. For me, Neuer is the top goalkeeper. In my view, Andre Onana comes in second before you have a third goalkeeper in Ter Andres Ter Stegen. I think that we won the AFCON in 2017 thanks to the heroics of Fabrice Ondua. That there is no debating that fact. But Cameroonians have that in mind that each time Andona has a poor game, they have to, I mean, they have to think about, and there's that remembrance of 2017 and Fabrice Ondoa's heroics. I always tell them one thing. 2018 World Cup, we had the chance to qualify, and we played the playoff game against Nigeria. We lost 4-0 in Uyo. Who was the goalkeeper at that time? It was Fabrice Ondoa. No Cameroonian ever made any show about it. We came back to Cameroon. The score was 1-1. So that it was 5-1 on aggregate for Nigeria. Nobody made any mention of the fact that we conceded 5 goals through Fabrice Ondoa. I think we should leave Fabrice Ondoa to football history. He was quite good in 2017. We won the AFCON. But when we're talking about modern football today, if you look at all the goalkeepers, let me take for example the Spanish team. David De Gea is very good, but he doesn't play. Look at the recent UEFA Nations League. He wasn't even present in the top 3 goalkeepers. Unai Simon, which is a typical Luis Enrique player, very good on the feet, not that good with saves, but very good one-on-one. Unai Simon played in the Euros. Unai Simon is the #1 goalkeeper for Spain. Where is David De Gea? Where is where are the other Spanish goalkeepers? You come to Brazil. Brazil has the same conundrum. You have Alisson, and you have the other good goalkeeper, Ederson, for Manchester City. Ederson, very good with the feet, a typical Guardiola goalkeeper. But Alisson, when you look at their statistics, Alisson, who plays for Liverpool, is better with the feet than Ederson, even though Ederson, I mean, in terms of statistics, in terms of the amount of balls that he can give to the attack line, is better. But in terms of overall statistics, Alisson is better, and that's why he's the #1 for Brazil. Modern goalkeepers today are not only defenders because they are the last line of defense, but they also aid in the creation of the game. How do you help in producing the football, producing the game that scores the goals? It is, I mean, if you look at Fabrice Ondoa, he's much more of a static goalkeeper. And our game today is, I mean, if you, why did we want Mate back? We wanted Mate back because not only good defensively, but very good with his feet. I mean, he is able to provide you, he's able to bring the ball forward and even provide a direct pass to the attackers, which Ngade is very much lacking in. And that is what Andre Onana provides. I'm very happy with what Andre Onana provides our national team. Very happy with the fact that, I mean, he's played 2 Champions League games and has been one of the best goalkeepers in the 2 Champions League days. It's true. They've lost 1, they've drawn 1. But his output in the national team should not be looked at in terms of what is the scoreline. Look at the match against South Korea. Look at the amount of save that he made. He saved the first ball, and then all the other defenders were ball watching before Heung Sung-min scored. So I will not say that he's better than Fabrice Ondoa because Fabrice Ondoa has written history, but in terms of what this team needs now, they need an Andre Onana, because when it comes to sharing the balls from the back, when it comes to even telling them how to position themselves, Andre Onana stands out among all the 3 or 4 that Rigobert Song can choose.
So I think what is shaping up is Raymond is going to have a Raymond's diary, and he's going to settle the question between Fabrice and in some time to come. But I think before you want to say something.
Lambert, listen. You know, sometimes when you are asked a question, and that question has to do with somebody who is your idol and the other one is not your idol, the tendency is that your arguments go in favor of your idol. And that's what Raymond seems to be doing. Now, when you talk about the goalkeeper, the one thing that differentiates a goalkeeper from any other player in the field is that he's the only one who plays the ball regularly with the hands, and the referee doesn't stop the match. Okay, so he's known for stopping the balls with the hands. So the extraordinary thing is playing with the feet. there is something about the goalkeeper to how you manage a defense. And then, of course, when the defense has been laid to rest and you are alone, and there is a ball for two between you, the attacker, and the goalkeeper, what is the question? What comes into play? It is a reflex. Now, when you talk about what Andre Onana has been doing this far, I have nothing to quarrel with, but I just wanted to remember that history provides that launch pad from which you can jump. Now, look at what happened during the African Nations Cup in 2019. All right, it was 2021. I don't think that Fabrice Onda was the goalkeeper. When Cameroon was ruthlessly taken out of the competition, it was somebody else. And if you go back to the African Nations Cup in 2017, who was the goalkeeper? It was Fabrice Ondua. How many goals did he consider in order to help Cameroon win the cup? Now, you're taking us to the match that was played in Nigeria, where Cameroon was defeated by 4-1. It was a Nigerian side playing against 11 Cameroonian players, with Fabrice Ondua as one of them. So who bore the responsibility for all of that? Before taking in those goals, there were certain things that happened. Well, what I mean to say in all of this is that what? Be they the Andre Onana or Fabrice Ondua, they have their strengths and weaknesses. And the only way I think that the technical staff of the team now can help and resolve this matter that seems to be dividing the entire nation is that you should have called in Fabrice Ondua in camp. In that way, the preparation by Andre Onana for the final, if he happens to be the #1 goalkeeper, I think in that way, there's going to be more competition between the two. The competition is going to be more intense than what is happening right now. Right now, the other two goalkeepers who are in camp, Passy, and the other whose name even the team coach is unable to pronounce, is such that of a servant and the master. So they already know that we're going to this tournament like this. If this guy doesn't experience an unexpected breakdown, there is no way we're going to play. But whereas if you called in Fabrice Ondua for them to begin to come together, the competition is going so steep. Of course, competition, a sportsmanly kind of competition, is going to be so steep that at the end of the day, it is the one who has better arguments to stand at the goal who is going to do it. So that even if you play in the first game and you discover that in the countdown to the second game you cannot deliver, the other one is going to come in. That's what I'm saying. My trouble is whoever has been called to come, let the reserve bench be a kind of reserve bench that can stand up to the regular team that begins the match. That's how I look at it.
So if you're just joining us here on the Lambom show, I think Raymond just had a problem there with his, hope he comes back on, but good. So I just wanted to read out some comments. Ismahilu Shifu, I'm watching. The Great Fon. Gilbert Zikfu, powerful. Elume, the great analyst. Raymond is leaving out an experienced player like Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting from going to the World Cup. I'm sure he's leaving out an experienced player like Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting from going to the World Cup. A good idea. So Raymond, you want to respond to that?
Well, can you get me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, not that I'm leaving out Choupo-Moting. The thing is that I mean, people have to take time out to observe and to watch football matches. Choupo-Moting has had the opportunity to impress not only the old staff, that's the Conceição staff, but also the Rigo Besson staff. He's very technical. I mean, we know his qualities, but he doesn't have that explosive power. He has the experience. But when I look at the World Cup this year and the master, that's Chief Fon Echekiye, he will not dispute me on this. When players come to the World Cup in June, they've played for a whole season, which means that there are some who are tired, there are some who finish the season quite early. So with a little bit of fitness, they are up and running. There are certain players who come and impress in the World Cup. But most players, look at the great players that we have today. Look at Neymar, look at Messi, look at Mbappe. I mean, if I go to Germany, if I go to Spain, I look at most of the players who are there. Most of them have had a great preseason. And for every football player, they'll tell you that 6 weeks of preseason is the ideal because it keeps you running for the season. this is the fittest World Cup that we'll ever had from 1930 till today, because the players are just from preseason. They are just getting started, just getting warm up, and then there is a World Cup in November. You will never have a better show than this for the next 20 or 30 years. And this World Cup is going to be very, very difficult in the sense that the players are going at the top of their powers, at the top of their strength. So a player like Choupo-Moting, who has been injured, he has been in and out of the team, even in Bayern Munich, where he plays in and out. I would prefer that we go in with a team which is quite fit, quite mobile, and quite tactically malleable, being able to contain the Swiss side. I mean, people don't even notice that Switzerland is in the top 25 of the FIFA rankings, and it's not a fluke that they got there. So I would prefer that a mobile front three. Guardiola played with a mobile front three for 2 years before going in for Haaland this year, and people always think that simply because Haaland is tall, he's not mobile. Look at the positions Haaland takes. Sometimes he's axing the ball at the first pole, and he gets the ball at the second pole, and he scores a goal. He's always there at the right point, at the right moment. The player who has had a huge shift in terms of performance, in terms of productivity for the Lions, has been Toko Ekambi. Toko Ekambi, for me, out of the attackers we've had in the AFCON, is the person who should not go out of that team. Because, I mean, for his last 10 games, he has scored about 7 goals. That's the greatest return he has ever had for the number of years he has been in the national team. But Mbeumo in the 2 matches has shown what he can offer. I mean, agility, speed. He offers solutions, even though the understanding is still very difficult. So I believe that these things can be fixed with a little bit amount of training, getting to know his teammates. But Muminga Malo is very industrious, helps out in midfield, and he can provide something more in the attack line. And then he's the one who works the most. I'm not saying that Choupo-Moting is out of the World Cup, but I prefer Choupo and Bakar to be on the bench. They are 30 years old. Leave that front three, that mobile front three that nearly most of the big teams today are functioning. Take Real Madrid, Benzema is out, but Real Madrid still has a 100% record. Why? Because you have Vinicius, Rodrigo, Fede Valverde. So the world today is moving towards a much more mobile front three, just as the world today is moving towards a 3-man defense. Netherlands used a 3-man defense during this UEFA Nations League. Belgium used it. Germany used it. Austria used a 3-man defense. I don't know why Cameroonians keep on criticizing why Rigobert Song had the right to use a 3-man defense.
I think, again, Fon, sorry, but Danny Dune says, I heard the idea by Raymond of having Vincent Abubakar come in as a replacement for Toko Ekambi. A great suggestion. But how does that impact the captain armband drama we have known with the Lions?
Harry Maguire is captain of Manchester United. Harry Maguire is captain of Manchester United. He's on the bench.
Fon, I think your sound has a problem. We cannot hear you, Fon. No. So log off and log on again. Let me see.
Are you getting me right?
Yes.
Okay, but it's something I see. However,
you have 2 devices on.
By the aspect of cosmetic kind of a beautiful woman, so we are not going to give preference to the armband in place of whoever has the class without making the right on. So when they cook to myself, you can stay on the bench, whatever.
Your line has a problem, Fon. Your line has a problem. Log off and then come back on and take off the other device.
All right. Did you get me?
Try now, let's see.
this thing is beginning to misbehave again.
Okay, we can hear all you're saying in the background, but we cannot.
Really? Okay, let me see. I'm coming. All right, I think I'll be there in just a few seconds.
So while you're coming on, this is what Gilbert says, talking about Ondua, you do not depend on yesterday's anointing to cast out a demon today. You will need fresh oil. Lisuke Mokijeri says, interesting one. And he says, I think the greatest mistake is that Song didn't call Ondua. Fon, I like your line of argument. And we also, Fon and Elume are doing well with good analysis. I couldn't miss this program. Thank you for coming. And concerning EMC Motin, that's Eric, I doubt that the country needs him for now. Even if for some reason he should be called, it would be better he plays from the bench. And Moki again says, considering Abubakar, he might have done something in the past, but right now I don't think he'll have enough impact to help the team cross even the group stage. So, Fon, you were weighing in on that. Fon?
You get me?
Yes.
Yeah. Ask the question again.
So you're about to weigh in about the Abubakar question, where somebody mentioned about Abubakar that I was responding to Raymond's comment that Abubakar should be actually left out of the bench, and somebody was putting that with respect to the captain ban. That what happens to that? And I think Raymond already answered that. Maguire is the captain for Manchester United. We are not sure when he's going to come back. In fact, having had an injury this past week, he has actually helped Manchester United.
I'm still getting some proposals coming from you. You're getting me fine. What I was trying to say is that we are not going to start altering the internal dynamics of the team because one person wants to be the internal captain.
There are two lines. There are two lines. One line should be shelved.
Sorry?
I'm saying yes.
Go ahead. That's the problem. So this one you have is not connected. Try now.
Can you put on his mic?
His mic, he's supposed to, because I have it on. Fon, can you get out of the studio and come back in, please? Log off and come back in. Yes. So while that is going on, and this. So again, Raymond, did you want to respond to the question about Abubakar? I know you already.
Yes. Well, and it's not really an issue of responding. I watch matches in two ways. I watch it live while it's going on. And when you're watching it live, you have a certain level of analysis because if I'm standing next to the coach while it's going on, there are certain issues that I can tell him. But after the match, I always like watching the encounter again with a cool head and then getting each player's contribution to the game. And like I said, when we played Algeria in the playoffs, you look at Choupo-Moting's contributions, it's not the same since Rigobert Song took over as when it was when Anthony Conceição was there. And if you look at both matches, his impact on the game, it's not the same. So that's why I believe that with a lesser impact that he's having on the game. If you look at the match against Uzbekistan, the first 30 minutes, he looked lost in the pitch. The balls were not coming, neither from the midfield or from the flanks. And he was struggling for balls. And he's not that kind of a player who can come back to the midfield and help out in the midfield or football construction for the team to get forward. He likes having the ball in his feet. he's not also the kind of player who goes in for duels. And I mean, if I know the kind of players who are in Switzerland, if you take Manuel Akanji, you take Granit Xhaka, I mean, these are players who like physical impact as much as possible, and he tends to shy away from that. So having him on the bench and coming in as a substitute, for me, I feel that's the best role that Abubakar can offer us right now. And as a young man who went to the World Cup in 2010, 12 years after, Abubakar coming in from the bench is the best way he can exit the competition.
Fon, can you say something? And I think as controversial as that is, I think it's a great thing. But so Fon, what you have to do, we can't hear you still. Take off the other, you logged in through another device. Go back and take off from the other device that you have, and then log back with this one, just this one. Because I still have you in the studio with two devices. So go back, log off completely from both, and then log back in. And while that is, while Fon is sorting out the technical issues, Raymond, there was a question here from Sinjo. Sinjo said something about
a right back.
Yes, I wish Raymond and Fon comment on the right back defender, dependable Fai Collins. You can already see his bias.
Well, I mean, what's there to say about Fai Collins? I think for me, Fai Collins has his qualities, which are greatly used in the national team. A great crosser of the ball. For me, average defender. Average going forward. I mean, you don't expect Fai Collins to be a Ashraf Hakimi or a Daniel Alves. But, I mean, he has his qualities, which is crossing the ball and trying to search for a target as much as possible. It's true that most people are already waxing lyrical about Fai Collins and Vinicius Jr., especially when they think about what Vinicius Jr. did to the Manchester City midfielder who just retired. But I think football it's also a game of tactics. If you look at the first match, Fai Collins' role was a little bit modified. I mean, they wanted him to play as a wing back to be able to provide balls going forward. And then when we have long balls in the back of the defense, try as much as possible to cover up that position. But he doesn't have the stamina to be able to do that for 90 minutes. I mean, in my view, Fai needs somebody up front, like Brian Bemo was offering. I mean, if you discover during the second match against South Korea, it was better because Brian Bemo was very, very generous in providing the cover. I mean, Hyun Sung-min is not the main attacker. Hyun Sung-min was playing as a left midfield forward. So Fai could defend against Hyun Sung-min. And Brian Bemo was always coming in to cover that angle, which permitted that in the attacking phases, Fai Collins could move in forward. But I'd always wanted more competition for Fai Collins. For me, I don't feel that Olivier Mbaizo provides that competition. The player that I thought could provide that competition was Sasha Bowie, who plays with Turkish side Galatasaray, but he has been called up once or twice. I have the impression that the technical staff looked at him and they were not quite impressed. But I think Fai needs, and I think even though Enzo Ebose is quite versatile, but I mean, he doesn't give me the same assurance that a Fai could give me. So I think for sure we'll make do with Fai, but I wanted more competition for him in that role. If we get somebody by our first match, 24th of November, fine and good. But if not, well, I hope he plays the 3 matches in the group stages.
Thank you. And let's try Fon again. We need to exercise it. Good. We need
Is it
to
okay now?
exercise here. Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
see. I see. Sinjo is talking about a wish for and Raymond to comment the right back defender, dependable Five Collins. Dependable Five Collins. He's always proven to be. I remember the first time when I called him dependable Five Collins during the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations. He had already demonstrated at the time that he was somebody, just from your extrapolations, you could know that with time he was going to be a really dependable. Even though from that move from calling him a dependable five to an intractable five. Now you know he has a diminutive build, and that accounts for a lower center of gravity and giving him therefore more stability. So it's usually very difficult for a player like that to be overpowered. He has demonstrated it so far. But all we can say is that, you know, the human endeavor is such that it starts dropping as time goes by. So he should now, as we look forward to the World Cup, have a competent backup player in that disposition. That's what should happen. In fact, almost for all of them. Before I went off the hook here, we were talking about Abubakar Vengsang. And I said it before, I think just shortly before Raymond would join the program, that with Abubakar Vengsang, we play back the tape and go back to what they call the Miller effect in 1990. It could be a very wonderful, a very seductive player. But the truth about it is that if you can no longer deliver physically, the up now for what the coaches call in the jargon a tactical utilization of the player. So that is why if you have somebody like Abubakar Vengsang, bring him in at that time where you need the killer effect in the team. So when you would have put in the Choupo-Motings and all the that sort of tight defense, you bring in somebody who has a knack for the goals. The person who with the slightest slip up, he capitalizes, and that is it. So I think that for now, Abubakar Vengsang cannot play an entire match, especially going to the World Cup. Now, don't tell us that you are tying them down to this thing you call the captain's armband. No, that is, for me, that's ephemeral. Get anybody who can be the captain, and because as the coach is and the president of Fecafoot are saying, come on, win the World Cup. But you are not going to win the World Cup by laying emphasis on who is going to become the next captain and so on and so forth. The man in charge who trains them, Rigobert Song-Bahana, would have bred in the life of the fighting spirit inside the den. When every other player will sniff it in, they now get ready to tackle their opponents, and that's what we want. We're not interested in knowing who is going to become the captain, who is not going to become the captain. We just hope that what he said, by saying that, by watching the team play in those two games, that he has seen what he was looking for, that effectively that is what it is. So that we're looking for, and we hope that when they will play the farewell match, as they say, against Jamaica in Yaounde on the 9th of November before they leave, that they would have been, he would have found exactly what he wanted, and that he's able to utilize it and convince Cameroonians ultimately that we are going to the World Cup without any pockets with holes in them.
So again, this show was supposed to be about African soccer vibes, but it seems as if we are focused entirely on Cameroon for obvious reasons, because the audience has been. But Moki says, how can Cameroon get the pace that is needed to be competitive even at the group stage? I'm sure from all the analysis that we have done here, don't you think we are lacking in that? It's like we play in slow motion. And you want to think Baizo is here to justify why he's being called up time and time again. We need a solid reserve bench. We just addressed those two things, because it seems as if it's not very competitive, some people. And this takes me to, if you want to make a comment about the Ghanaian team, because I think one of the Ghanaian players seem to have given the impression this past week that they who are the veterans of the team, their places are already guaranteed. And it seems as if that's the same thing with the Cameroonian team, even though Fecafoot president, the boss, had already said nobody's position is guaranteed in the team. So I don't know. You want to talk about the Ghanaian team and then throw a few words with respect to the two questions?
No, but as far as the Ghanaian team is concerned, what I think is that there was something like a distraction when this thing was heading forward to tackling their test games. The presence of Asamoah Gyan in the team. Well, sometimes you should try to look at some of these players and try to read and try to understand what they mean sometimes when they say yes to a call and when they say no to a call. Now, when Asamoah Gyan was saying that he wanted to play the World Cup, play at the World Cup finals, it was because of two things. One was more of selfish. He said he wanted to do what Miller did. I found that to be a little selfish. But if you're going to the World Cup with that age that you have now, and remember that you were the person who prevented them Oh, let me just say, well, it's a way of saying it. That prevented them from reaching the semi-finals of the World Cup when they lost an all too important penalty that night, that cold night in South Africa, while I was standing just behind the stadium. You need to do one or two things, and you need to convince them that effectively where you are able to give what the team lacks to make it to the World Cup. Now, if the coaches think that they can use you, that they can deploy you in the team to provide what the others cannot provide, then good and fine. Don't you forget that this whole thing is called the World Cup, which means that it's a world war where nobody is killed. So everybody by that nationality who has something to offer should be called up to go and join in the collective crusade to give the country what they deserve on the global stage. Now, if I could step back and look at what Kamini Carlos was trying to do, unfortunately for him, he's not been called up. At the same time, we have not been told that he will not be called up. But what we are saying is, you are going for the World Cup, you are taking the best this country has to offer. And so if you have veterans, as you call them, who have something to offer in a game of football, then take them along. That's going to be good for the image of the country when they profess them, because there is something, it doesn't matter how talented you are, Lambert, there is something that you can never ever shove aside. That thing they call experience. Experience counts a lot when you go into a competition like this. So you might not have the necessary lungs that could take you along at a certain pace, fine. But play with somebody next to you who can do that work, and then you do the cleanup part of it. You do the cleanup just based on the experience that you have. So if he has that touch to give the Black Stars what they require to improve on past performances, then I think good and fine. You should be taken along for the World Cup.
Raymond, any comment about the Ghanaian team? Or you need to unmute yourself.
Well, there's been a lot of talk in Ghana about the fact that there is talk that Coach Otto Addo is that he's a temporary coach, and that as a temporary coach you get temporary results. That if he's made permanent coach, he'll be able to walk in with a little bit more serenity. Well, let's not forget that Otto Addo got them qualified. That epic match against Nigeria, 1-1 aggregate, that they qualified. But I watched the match against Brazil, and this Brazilian team was supposed to be the Brazilian team coached by Coach Tite in 2018. Tite has been around the block in Brazil for so long. It was a foregone conclusion that he will end up coaching the Brazil national team. I thought that he would be the one who was going to be there in 2018. Unfortunately, it was somebody else. But then, luckily for the Brazilian Federation, they went for him, and losing 3-0 to Brazil, for me, it's no bad idea. But when I look at the team that played against Brazil and the team that drew 1-1 with Nigeria to qualify 1-1 on aggregate, only 7 players from that team were present in that match. The goalkeeper was still the same, Joseph Wallacott. The right back was still Denis Odoi. Center back pairing of Daniel Amate and Alexander Djiku. Now you had Abdul Babar Rahman, who was not there, but Abdul Babar Rahman is a standout player for the Ghanaian national team. You take the defense, you have Idrisu Baba. Thomas Partey did not play the match against Brazil, but can you play a World Cup match without Thomas Partey? Look at the impact that he had today in the match Arsenal versus Tottenham. Yeah. So it tells you. And then players that have always wanted them to enter into the Ghanaian national team, Kamaldeen Sulemana, Mohamed Kudus. These are players that I've always talked about, even during the AFCON, that Ghana will be better placed if they can integrate these youngsters who have a lot to prove. And then with Ghana playing 4-5-1, who is up front? Felix Afena-Gyan, player for AS Roma, a young player, but he is the main striker today. So, I quite understand what Fon Echekiye is talking about with the fact that Asamoah Gyan wants to have a Miller kind of effect but is it going to be profitable for them? That is the question. And that question can best be answered if you look at their group. I mean, for me, Ghana is in the group of death. You have Uruguay. You have Portugal. How do you get out from such a group with such players? Ghana has to. I mean, Ghana has to surpass itself for them to be able to get out of that group. But I think Ghana is still a team which is still building. They still have the Ayew brothers, both Jordan and Andre Ayew, which, in my view, the day those two are out of the team, I believe that team will play better. But Coach Otto Addo has to be very much courageous to be able to bring out a tactic in which those two are not involved. And then maybe we may see the real Ghana. They may surprise us, but I'm not. I think they are still a team which is still a work in progress, is still building. For me, the objective is not the World Cup. AFCON 2023 will be better suited for them to see how far this team has progressed.
That's interesting. They are just going to participate and prepare for AFCON 2023. But I also think that, Fon, if you don't mind, I think Ghana and Senegal, let's do a deep dive on them next Saturday. But make your point. We focused a lot today on Cameroon. Next Saturday, we promise we are going to do a deep dive on Ghana and Senegal and their tactics. But Fon, go ahead.
No, you just said you're closing that. We'll talk about it next Saturday. I just want to round up it by saying that sometimes when we talk about football analysis, what Raymond is saying and doing, what is doing all tonight is talking like an enlightened man in the game of football. So the ordinary Ghanaian fan will not understand that the World Cup is just around the corner. You're asking them to look ahead of the World Cup, the African Nations Cup in 2023. You have a foresight in the game of football, and you know that football would all have to stay. It stays because you look well ahead. You have the foresight as far as the game is concerned. But there are others who want immediate results, and therefore, somebody like the coach Addo, who himself who would need to be given the green light, that is the man in charge, will definitely take advantage of the situation the challenger is put in front of him and embrace it, and then look ahead of what happens when the days leading up to the finals get closer and closer.
So I think there are many comments about that Ghana is truly in the group of death. I don't expect any surprises from them. And let's take one last question. Raymond, is it true that Olivier Ncham is among the fastest players on earth? I don't know about that.
Well, the fastest man I know is, the fastest man I know is Usain Bolt. But the fastest man on earth, that's still left to be seen. There is a problem with running with the ball. The fast players that I know, Vinicius is one of them. You have Kylian Mbappé, very, very fast with the ball. So the problem is, how much speed do you have when you have the ball with you, and how much speed do you have when you don't have the ball with you? And I think a player who encapsulates both is Kylian Mbappé. I mean, the runs he makes to ask for the ball and get it is quite phenomenal. And then when you give him the ball at his feet, he's at his devastating best. Because, one touch, two touch, Mbappé can put a whole defense down, running at full speed, and then having the ball at his feet.
So thank you. And like I just said, Danny, let's take the question. If you want to take a step at that now, but we'll really focus on Senegal and Ghana next week. But if Raymond, if you want to look at that, what are the chances of Senegal now that they carry the bull's eye on them as the best African chance and a contender to the cup?
Well, it's my opinion too. I think I'll have to agree with Danny June. Yes, they're in the group with Qatar. No disrespect to Qatar. It's true that they are the host, but I think Senegal has the best chance to represent Africa at the World Cup in Qatar. I watched the match Senegal versus Bolivia. Senegal won 2-0. That was their first test match. Surprisingly enough, Senegal played with a back three-man defense. You had Abdou Diallo, you had Kalidou Koulibaly, and you had Fode Ballo. Nobody in Senegal complained. The front line was Crépin Diatta, Sadio Mane, Boulaye Dia. I mean, they played 3-4-3. The same thing that Rigobert Song did. Why did anyone or no one make a comment about that? Is it because they beat Bolivia 2-0? In the midfield, you had Mustafa and you had Pape Matar Sarr. It's true. I mean, Senegal has quite a good chance. They have the reigning African Player of the Year, Sadio Mane. I mean, who scored yesterday when Bayern destroyed Bayer Leverkusen 4-0. Senegal has a much more structured team than any other team, even though I feel that Tunisia, if they can add a little bit of mental strength to their team, they too can be dark horses. But Senegal has a well-structured team. They have a very good spine. I mean, goalkeeper, Edouard Mendy with Chelsea, Kalidou Koulibaly with Chelsea. You have Idrissa Gana Gueye, Pape Matar Sarr, Sadio Mane. I mean, these are players who you put them in any team in the world, they'll be able to find their feet. And interestingly enough, let me give you another interesting statistic. The Senegal team, which won against Egypt 1-0. Do you know how many players played against Bolivia? Just 3. That's Kalidou Koulibaly, Sadio Mane, and Boulaye Dia. They changed 8 players in the team just to play against Bolivia. But you will get Cameroonians telling you that, why are we trying players for the World Cup? So I think I'm very happy, and Fon Echekiye would not dispute me on this, that this is the first World Cup in which all 5 African teams are represented by 5 local coaches. I think we should allow these coaches and the technical bench to work. Let's see what comes out of it. We can draw the lessons after the World Cup. But for now, I think if we can believe very much in African competence, then let's also believe in the results that African coaches can produce.
So welcome back, Fon. I think you've been having some challenges. I don't know, today has not been, we have suffered a lot. But let's transition to something, and we have gone over the 1 hour mark. Let's do another 18 minutes and get on 1 hour, 30 minutes. But let's talk about something we addressed last week. Cameroon has the notoriety for always getting some legal challenges. This week, Le Coq Sportif came back, and again, I think proceeding with their legal challenge or legal suit against Fecafoot. So what is happening with that suit? What is happening? We thought that this had been put to rest, but it seems as if it's going to drag on. Last week you said there was a clause in the contract that said even if their contract ends, they have a 6-month window, and they were ready to supply the equipment for the World Cup and all that. But Eto'o, the president of Fecafoot, seems to have said he has taken a decision and that's done. So where are we?
I will be asking the same question, because when I was on the program last week, I said that what I had in hand said that they were come to the end of that saga, but it didn't seem to be so. But now the question we're asking ourselves is, who provided the kits that the players used for their 2 friendly matches in South Korea? I guess the answer is so clear. So what I know, because they themselves are not coming up until Fecafoot comes up with an official document announcing and making clear their position on this matter, we're going to continue supposing that this is happening and that is not happening, and so on and so forth. But what we know is that Yannick Noah has made us understand from the social media publications that he has good intentions of Cameroon, his fatherland. And so he will not stand in the way of Cameroon achieving what they want to achieve. It's just that it makes a lot of sense, and it takes a lot of fair play for us to be able to accept the verdict on the ground. And briefly put, it is a situation where Puma's contract with Cameroon came to an end, And they were coming now to see Cameroon to say, okay, we'll have to renegotiate this matter because you people have lost your billing on the international market because you no longer win matches, you no longer win competitions, so we are going to do that. They had an appointment during the 2017 African Cup of Nations, and the envoy from Apoma came to Gabon, was unable, reportedly, to meet with the president of FECAFO at the time, Tombi Aroko. So he went back. And so, cut up in that situation, there was a fellow countryman called Yaounde and his men of the Coq Sportif who said, okay, have these jerseys and go and use them in various competitions, and later on, we'll come and talk about how we go about compensating us for this. So it was like my fellow countryman trying to save a situation that was almost dire and desperate. Now, he has come to the end of what he did, and now he turns back to say, okay, can we go back now to the driver and look at what is supposed to be done? It is happening at a time where hands are changing, when they're changing hands at FECAFOOT. And the new man in charge says that what I have seen as the terms governing this particular contract for me is not something I can buy. So that is the long and short of the whole thing. And the question we're asking ourselves is, like you've said, Lambert, is it the time right now for us to be splitting hairs over something like this when we're just less than 2 months to the World Cup? I don't think so. So this could be one of those things that are going to prevent Cameroon from embracing a lifetime dream. And I think that the earlier or the sooner this thing is cleared, the better for the country.
Raymond, any comments?
Well, I think both Samuel Eto'o and Yaounde are sons of this country called Cameroon. Both of them are quite patriotic. Both of them want to do something for their fatherland, which should be remembered in history. And in my view, I think we should take them out of the equation. I think the issue we have at hand is FECAFOOT versus Coq Sportif. But now, the impression that I have is that while FECAFOOT is trying to be quite legal on the matter and not being emotional, Coq Sportif is trying to be more emotional, engaging themselves in lobbying in the matter. When we look at social media, we look at pictures of Coq Sportif officials meeting in with officials of this country. We ask ourselves, there is a court case in France. Why don't we have a court case in Cameroon? That's the first question. We are the main consumers of the product. It doesn't mean, I mean, I'll be happy to wear a jersey during this World Cup because I'm representing my country, just like every Cameroonian out there. France is going to play its own World Cup. Will a French wear a Cameroonian jersey simply when France is playing? So I would have preferred that the court case should be here in Cameroon than it being out there in France. We have our courtrooms here in Yaounde, in Ekunu, or in Douala, at Bonanjo, on the Butu. Why don't we have the case? Why is the case not tabled there? That's the first thing. Now, Raymond,
what about the courtrooms in Kumba? What about the courtrooms in Kumba?
Even in Bamenda? Yes. Now, I have a friend who was telling me the other day that if we have to talk about people, if Yaounde loved this country so much, the shares he bought for Coq Sportif, he could have used the same amount of money to buy those shares at SICAM. He would have gone a long way to promote SICAM than to promote a French company called Coq Sportif. And I found out that the point was quite pertinent and he needed some answers. But I don't think we are there yet. I've been monitoring FIFA's communication website for the past 2 weeks, and out of all the 32 countries which have their jerseys set, Canada has a problem with its jersey. That's why Canada, they are not renewing their contract with their promoter, which is Nike.
I think Raymond is frozen, if I'm not mistaken.
Lambert, I see you are off the hook. But since I'm on, I think Raymond is off the hook.
Yes,
but I would just have loved to cut in to say one thing concerning what Raymond just said about why the court case has to be taking place in Paris. I guess that I've not done law before, but I think that it has to do with the place where this whole thing began. It would appear, therefore, that it was a contract that was signed in France. I imagine would have contracted in France. I imagine that is kind of thing without been signed their way. But it's not suggesting again that somebody is saying that should have been Yannick Noah should have opted to be in tandem with SICAM and maybe try to improve to let's say to sponsor or to encourage the Cameroonian initiative and the Cameroonian fabric. I was just going to ask the same question: whether the guy who made this suggestion to Raymond, he himself, when he looked at him on the day, was saying that what type of fabric the guy had on. Did they have a locally made fabric? so those are things are really going out of the way of what really matters. And I think that, like Raymond said already, what should happen is that the Tofis and Yannick Noah, they should come in, one from Fekafu, the other one from Coq Sportif, and then look at this matter. Try to have this matter ironed out just amongst them, because it is constituting already a distraction for Cameroon's campaign to the World Cup. So this is not the time for us to having this kind of thing going on, because the other thing is that the next moment people start saying Yannick Noah, someone like a traitor and so on and so forth, whereas he's not. If you go and look at a whole history of what Yannick Noah and the family have done for this country, they have demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt they're very patriotic. So all they are doing is business. That one is very clear. So I'm not so sure that whoever is saying whatever they are saying, they will want us to dump some of our private needs because you say that, no, I don't want to be accused of being unpatriotic and stuff like that. That is not what it is. It makes a lot of economic sense if you try to play by the rules of the game. So if the rules of the game said that Coq Sportif had to provide a kit and that they were following the terms of the contract, then they should go ahead. If it's not the case, then to avoid that kind of distraction that I already see creeping into the den, then they should go to One All Sport. One All Sport, I've seen certain things that One All Sport has produced. It is true that it looks like it's the very first time they are getting into the sponsorship or providing kits for a football side. At some point, you always begin something. So people just stop saying that, well, because they've been involved in mechanical sports, they have nothing to do with football and so on. That is no argument. It's not tenable. So what they should do right now is draw the line, bottom line, and agree on what is to be done right away before this thing becomes another opportunity for people to start shooting themselves in the foot ahead of a big competition like the World Cup.
Right, and I think last week we also talked about it, because I also read this week, and I hope that that's not the case. By the way, Moki says the issue of the location where the case is heard is a matter that may raise the dust of colonialism and governance. It may be far bigger than football. Like with everything, it's always far. We don't talk politics on this show. So
ask Mr. Moki, which particular thing in this world affects people more than any other thing else is going to involve sports. And that is why at some point, some officials of FIFA had a lot of trouble with the United Nations, because they were arguing that how many people does the United Nations manage, and how many countries does FIFA manage? So to start suggesting that something is bigger than football is something that may lead to a thesis defense, I think I will call my man Elume to get up for that kind of thing, and then let's see what the result is at the end of the day.
Okay, so again, that's a long, and I just checked online to see that. So currently there are 2 sets of jerseys for Cameroon, one produced by Le Coq Sportif and the other produced by All One Sport. So the confusion is still brewing, and we hope that is settled in good time. But let's get on to something that's happening in Cameroon tomorrow. It seems as if there's a Champions Cup competition, and what struck me was the president of Fekafoot seemed to have written a letter to the president of PW Bamenda. I think they were supposed to be playing against Coton Sport, and saying that the competition is going to be between the champions of is it 2021 or 2022? I don't. But what is that confusion, and what is happening tomorrow?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't think there's any competition. There's any confusion. I mean, PWD won the cup the last time around when the championship wanted to start at the beginning of the Samuel Eto'o era, and it was unanimously agreed among FECAFOOT officials and the clubs that PWD will represent Cameroon in this year's CAF Confederations Cup, while the winner of the championship this year we just ended, that's 2021-2022, will represent Cameroon in the CAF Champions League, which Coton Sport is currently doing. PWD won the cup and then played in the CAF Confederations Cup, which they lost in the preliminary round to El Gecko Plus, a team from Madagascar. Now we are in 2022. We are moving towards the 2022-2023 season. So which means that the Cup of Cameroon that we are playing tomorrow, Sunday, is the winner of the Cup of Cameroon 2021-2022. Meanwhile, PWD was agreed to be the winner of the Cup of 2020-2021. Now, if we get a winner tomorrow, we also have the winner of the championship 2021-2022, which is Coton Sport. So it is but logical. I see it everywhere. I mean, in the Premier League, the Community Shield is between the winner of the FA Cup versus the winner of the championship of the previous season. If the winner of the FA Cup is still the winner of the championship, like 2 seasons ago Manchester City was, we take the finalist, right? So it means that tomorrow, if Coton Sport wins against Bambutos, at the level of the Champions Cup, which is organized by the federation, it's still going to be Coton Sport versus Bambutos, because Coton Sport would have won the Cameroon Cup. Bambutos is the runner-up, which means that Coton Sport would have a double this season, and being the holder of 2 titles, for sure, the Champions Cup would be played between Coton Sport and Bambutos. Now, in my opinion, I think this was poorly handled because at the level of the federation, they didn't understand that we were engaged in 2 seasons, even though we were in 1 calendar year. I think the Secretary General of the federation has to work better. In my view, I see Samuel Eto'o appointing many people who are football savvy, but the fact that he hasn't got a Secretary General who is quite football savvy, quite competition savvy, is somebody who is coming from his area of expertise is law. He's a legal mind. I still think that is a blemish to his reign. I think he should get somebody who is football savvy into that position, such that such errors don't arise again. But I think tomorrow we are going to have a beautiful feast in Cameroon, the communion of not only football, but of other sporting disciplines. And then the start of the season is going to be heralded by the Champions Cup. That is the winner tomorrow versus the current championship winners, which are Coton Sport.
So, Fon, I mean, again, you put it so well that is just maybe that's why Elias says the timing is wrong. And I'm thinking he's referring to the Le Coq Sportif and FECAFOOT deal. And he's saying the timing is wrong and Eto'o should have had a tete-a-tete with Le Coq Sportif before he came to this. That tells me he needs to grow in management. And I'm just putting it because you also said his Secretary General has a legal mind. And so I hope I'm just because I'm not on the ground, I don't know. Yes.
No, Lambert, I want to react to what Elias Eno is saying. Mr. Eno, Eto'o has taken a number of decisions in this country. He has done a number of things of FECAFOOT, and this slip up on this issue of or this saga between Coq Sportif and Owa Sport, or Coq Sportif and FECAFOOT should not be the one item that should make you just give him a complete vote of no confidence. That's not true. He is doing things the best of his ability, and he cannot always see. No human endeavor is perfect. Now, Raymond is making a remark about what the Secretary General has been up to this. I think he's doing his really very best. You know, the trouble is that these guys, they did what was thought at the time to be unfathomable. that they could have taken out of office the incumbent at the time. They came up, they started doing things, and they were like raising eyebrows left and right and doing things that people thought were not possible, making possibilities possible, and actually making possibilities eventually becoming probabilities. So each man at his level is trying to do things to the best of ability. You remember the last time when Rigobert Song had granted a press conference, there was so much noise that was heard on the social media, and a lot was written about how the communication of the team was being done and stuff like that. But recently, we've forgotten to give a tick correct to the media officer of the national team, Thierry, who did a wonderful job during the team's stay in South Korea for the test games. So each and every person is trying to put in this little bit to make sure that these guys, where they are still giving Cameroonians reason to believe in them. So therefore, they have no chance. They will have no excuse to give if they were to have any slip up here and there. So we're all looking for a more inspiring management of Africa food, which is already doing well, from my opinion.
So again, I think we have hit our 1 hour 30 minutes mark. Normally we are on for 1 hour. I really want to appreciate coming in, Raymond, and I hope that you are not leaving us anytime we have to be together till Fon. Yes, I hope that we are able to share a drink with Raymond this evening, off camera.
As the master, as the master speaker, so shall it be done.
So, again,
what he requires to do is that he should leave this studio now. I know he was hosting a meeting, and I had to abandon to come and participate on this show. It means that he still believes in me. Well, that being the case, all he needs to do is to take his car and then drive to that spot that he knows like that. That is not all. Hey, what is happening to Lambert? Lambert, what has suddenly happened to you? Before worrying about a peep into the checks diary?
No, again, I was just putting that, just making sure that we always have to end up by getting something from a checks diary. I remember I put something in the parking lot. You said the rivalry between Bell Joseph Antoine or Joseph Antoine Bell and Kono has been resolved in a checks diary. So that was supposed to be bonus for today. So give us what was originally meant for today before you give us the bonus. As
no, I'm not going to. No. That one, it is okay. I can say a number of things, but there are certain things I'm not going to say because at the end of the day, you may not even need to have the book anymore. And also, one of the things that will make people get the book to get because well, what I can say for now concerning the checks diary, because I want to tie the event to the time. So this evening, 22 years ago, at about now, was happening at the former minister Henry Kibu's lakeside residence in the nation's capital, Yaounde, the countdown to the final game between Unisport of Oncam and Kumbo Strikers. So it was a countdown on if like this. It wasn't this very day. Then it was on the 16th of December. But today is the evening of the event of the Football Cup of Cameroon final. So the Kumbo Strikers players and the management, Kumbo Strikers was the creation of a certain father, Isidore Shea Lafon, and then benefiting from the management of people like Hilary Befuwen of blessed memory, Jude Tata of blessed memory, and even the paramount of the Fon of the Insop. They put their hands together in terms of management, and the team got to where it was, because before then, from 1963 to 1979, it has been 7 appearances of teams on the other side of the Mongo. With all the attempts to win the Cup of Cameroon had been futile. So Kumbo Strikers decided that they were not going to repeat what you could call a bad example of things that have happened in the past. So the following day, that was going to be next day, Sunday, Franklin Chakang got the ball and slotted it under the advancing goalkeeper Sonne and gave Kumbo Strikers the 1-0 victory. President Biya handed over the trophy to team captain Sam Sinche, and that night, all who mattered in town of Anglophone extraction conglomerated at the residence of the lakeside residence of the Prime Minister then, Peter Mafani Musonge, who received and gave them all the advice they could give. And then the next day, they left town and were driving now to what I call, because there are 2 pages of talking about serious historicity in that book. There is what they call, and I described the last time as the historic crawl, and there was now this one called historic moment. And what was the moment? the crossing of the National Challenge Cup of Cameroon over the Mongo Bridge to Boya. So it was a historic moment. And I remember very well that as a reporter at CRTV, accompanied by my cameraman, Richard Besson, we received Shea Tasha Lawrence, whom I interviewed. I said, what's the significance of this trophy crossing this bridge? And I quote from the record, he said, this trophy is going to cement the national unity of this country, and so on and so forth. He said many other things. You know, some of these guys, when they have the opportunity to step in and get some kinds of politics, they send us some cane and sugar and stuff like that. So we finally took this trophy right up to Boya, from Boya, where the mayor at the time, Mokake, said if a team from this side of the country could win the Cup of Cameroon, then it could be a sign of better things to come. Remember, he was a stalwart of the Social Democratic Front. So at the time, he thought that by winning the trophy at the time, it was already a signal that the Social Democratic Front was going to elbow out of power the Cameroon's People Democratic Movement. Then we left the next day and then went over to Bamenda, Bafoussam, Bamenda, Ndop, and so on, and finally met in Kumbo, where it mattered most. Everybody in town was available. And I remember very well that at the end of what happened in Kumbo, the Paramount Fund called me in his inner courtyard and asked me, how are you? I said, I'm okay in bed. He said, okay, look behind you. I turned around, I saw a goat that had been fed that day. He said, take that goat straight back to Yaounde. And so early next morning, myself and Besson Richard, we drove back to the nation's capital, Yaounde, with a goat. And we ended up transforming that living goat into slice of meat for some wonderful pepper soup we had after that. So those were things that happened about 22 years ago.
Fon, I'm looking forward to the book. So the book launch again, what is the date?
D-Day -20 as we speak.
Good. So D-Day -20, looking forward to that. And just before we round up, hey, Lume and Lambert Afon, you guys doing a great job. We need more opinionative shows like this to educate our football fans on how the game is run and how we consume football. So thank you very much. Any last words, Raymond?
No, thank you for having me on the show. I think my invite came from Fon. I've always looked up to him. I mean, I'm a child of television, and the other day I was looking at old Sports Vision's clips, and it's all over Twitter, where people were trying to, think about how CRTV was in the 80s and the 90s, and we stumbled on Sports Vision. And I mean, if you go to Twitter, where they talk about the Cameroon pages, there's more than 1,000 comments just on Sports Vision. So, I mean, it tells you that the pages of Cameroon sports history have been written. We are getting ready to celebrate a Czech's diary, and it's not going to be the last. I mean, I hope I get to an age in which I can also have a diary of such sporting facts and events for 33 years and counting.
So thank you. It's not always we have a student and a mentor here. Fon has always given us who inspired him, Zakarin Ko. And that is the first day we started this show. We started with those words and we have repeated them over the weeks. And I think that, Raymond, we really want to invite you to be a permanent part of this show. It's been very, very interesting and exciting. I'm sure your mentor is going to ensure that we continue with this. We are here every Saturday. I want to thank those who were in the audience. I think this is the richest audience we have had since we started off. It's been quite interesting, and we want to keep it like that. Thank you, Muki. Muki says, with serious history. I can't wait for that book, and courage to the panel. So thank you all, and you again, we can go on and on, but every good thing has to take some little bit of respite so that we can, gain some energy and come back. So join us again next Saturday for another exciting edition of the Lambom Show, and we're going to have this every Saturday till we get to the World Cup. Then Fon and I are going to determine after that what to do with ourselves. So Raymond, welcome to the team. Welcome to the panel. Thank you all. Have a good evening. And I'll see you. We all will convene again next Saturday. Thanks.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.